Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 12 Types of Research. And our topic is Experimental and Evaluative Research. Experiments are theoretically the purest way of dealing with the problem of cause and effect. Therefore, the experiment is the most sophisticated way of getting at the problems of explanation. Ideally, in this type of research, the researcher would like to show that X causes Y. In order to show that X causes Y, the researcher will have to demonstrate that X was both a necessary and a sufficient cause of Y. That is, the researcher will have to show that X must occur in order for Y to follow, and that Y is the result of X or nothing else. Controlled experiments involve the manipulation of circumstances. The researcher needs to identify factors which are significant and then introduce them to or exclude them from the situation, so that their effect can be observed. The identification of causal factors, the introduction or exclusion of factors to or from the situation enables the researcher to pinpoint the factors that actually cause the observed outcome to occur. Observation and measurement. Experiments rely on precise and detailed observation of outcomes and changes that occur following the introduction or exclusion of potentially relevant factors. They also involve close attention to the measurement of what is observed. Controlled experiment research may be in a laboratory setting or in field settings. Laboratory experiments are usually of short duration and involve close control of variables to isolate causal factors. They involve meticulous observation and measurement. Such a method involves a uniform procedure and allows the researcher to measure a specific trait. But laboratory experiments at the same time do not allow the researcher to study things in natural settings. They can be expensive and have restricted applicability. It is difficult to assess the extent to which the test results reflect the respondent's experience of the test situation itself, rather than the specific ability or aptitude under investigation. Lab setting may produce an artificial environment which may affect the test results, and data gathered under artificial setting may seem shaped up. Another kind of experimental research involves an experiment carried out in natural settings. In studies like levels of income of individuals or the issue of poverty, the level of smoking in office premises, etc., the researcher cannot manipulate circumstances. It is neither feasible nor ethical to impose control on such studies. Therefore, they are to be studied in their natural environment. Such studies are also of longer duration and expensive too. To tackle the situation, some social scientists have resorted to a quasi-experimental approach. In this case, researchers are on the outlook for naturally occurring experiments, situations in which they can see the possibility of observing and measuring the impact of isolated variables through circumstances as they happen, without imposing artificial control. For example, displacement of people as a consequence of a mining project could be called a naturally occurring experiment. Social workers have become increasingly involved in evaluative research. The essence of evaluating research can be reduced to the following three basic questions. How effective is the program or agency, procedure or administrative structure? How efficient is the program? This generates the question of cost benefit or cost effectiveness of the program. Should the activity continue? Is the program effective or efficient? If not, is it right to continue the program? Also, researchers should not ignore the points like: is the program sound on moral or legal grounds? A competent evaluator may not ignore the value problems presented. Now let us move to the next point, participatory action research. From its beginning, action research had its involvement with practical issues, the kind of issues and problems, concerns and needs that arise as a root in the real world. This practical orientation remained a defining characteristics of action research. There are the following four defining characteristics of action research. First is practical. It is aimed at dealing with the real world problems and issues typically at work and in organizational setting. Second, change, both as a way of dealing with practical problems and as a means of discovering more about change in social phenomena, is regarded as an integral part of research. And third is cyclical process. Research involves a feedback loop in which initial findings generate possibilities for change, which are then implemented and evaluated as a prelude to further investigation. And the next is participation. Practitioners are the crucial people in the research process. Their participation is active, not passive. Within itself, action research includes two stages. In the first stage, the research is carried out, and in the second stage, practitioners apply knowledge generated from research. The two processes of research and action are integrated, but this integration of research with practice limits the feasibility of exercising control over the factors of relevance to research. The setting for research generally does not allow the variables to be manipulated or controlled to be put in place, because research is conducted not alongside routine activity but actually as part of that activity. Now let us conclude the unit. This unit has explained what is research and with what sort of purpose does one carry out a piece of investigation into the nature of the social reality. The list of various types of research is simply to provide us familiarity with the different labels that we sometimes attach to sociologist work. In real life, it is not all that easy to put a research into a particular slot. The reason for listing of different type of researches is merely to indicate that often research is inclined to focus on one or the other type. Their inclinations help us to evaluate their contributions to the corpus of sociological inquiry about social phenomena. In a similar vein, we will discuss the subject of research methods and research design before embarking on particular ways of carrying out sociological research in our next unit. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self Learning Podcast.